Zach's law means that trolling anybody deliberately with the intention of causing them seizures is now a criminal offense.
The crime was so shocking, a law was created in Rachel Hoffman's name.
Innocent people were poisoned to death for no reason.
Some laws were created in moments of panic. Something went wrong and people scrambled to make a law to prevent it from ever happening again. Today we're doing a deep dive into laws that only exist because of one incident. We'll start with the lighter stories and save the worst for last. My goal is still the same, guys, to increase the number of videos I put out without sacrificing quality. To do that, we gotta keep growing. So it would mean the world if you subscribe, and I promise to do my very best that I can for you. I'm Visual Venture and you are awesome. Rachel's Law. Rachel's Law exists because a young woman trusted the police, and that trust cost her her life. The law is named after a 23-year-old Rachel Hoffman. In 2008, Rachel graduated from Florida State University. She was young and full of dreams. She wanted to attend culinary school and become a chef. Her mother later described her like this.
She was beautiful, she was talented, she loved music.
But Rachel had a secret. She occasionally used substances.
Rachel was a pothead, and Rachel sold marijuana to her friends out of her home.
That same year she graduated, Rachel's neighbors smelled pot coming from her apartment. They called the police. Officers arrived and searched her home. Inside, they found pot.
And we found roughly a quarter pound of marijuana. It was present during a search warrant, for sure.
And if you were to hold that, how much would that be?
Baggy.
A bag.
Right.
Find a Planet Fitness near you for $1 down, $15 a month. Cancel anytime. Deal ends January 30th.
Mercy is now playing in theaters.
Detective Raven, this is the Mercy Capital Court. You're charged with the murder of...
Rachel was arrested. She was facing a possible prison sentence. That meant her dream of becoming a chef was a risk. She was desperate for a way out. That's when the police made her a dangerous offer. Rachel was given two choices. She could fight the charges in court and risk prison, or she could work for the police as an informant. Afraid of losing everything, Rachel agreed to go undercover. In May 2008, detectives gave her an assignment. Police were investigating two suspected drug dealers, but they didn't have enough evidence to arrest them. That's where Rachel came in. They asked her to pose as a buyer. She would meet the suspects in a park and purchase substances from them. Rachel was nervous, but detectives assured her that she wouldn't be alone. They promised that 18 officers would be nearby watching the park. Once the deal was done, police would move in and make arrests. And Rachel would go home, make dinner for her friends, or go to a movie. The detectives gave Rachel $13,000 and put a listening device in her purse. She was now part of an undercover operation.
Somehow, Rachel Hoffman ended up on the front lines of the biggest drug bust in the history of Tallahassee's police department.
On the day of the meeting, Rachel met the suspects at the park, but they had a different plan. The suspects told her to follow them to a new location. Police tried to warn Rachel not to go, but technical issues prevented her from actually receiving that message. She got into her car and drove off.
Sure they
Police
did.
tried to follow, but they lost sight of her. That was the last time she was seen alive. Rachel and the two suspects arrived at the new location, but they never planned to sell her anything. Their real goal was to steal her money. Then one of them noticed the listening device. The situation turned deadly. They realized Rachel was working with the police. Before she could escape, the suspects ended her. 2 days later, police arrested the suspects.
Investigators from the Tallahassee Police Department had Mr. Green and Mr. Bradshaw transported back to Tallahassee. They led us to Ms. Hoffman's body. She is deceased.
Both men were sentenced to life in prison. Rachel's tragedy caused outrage nationwide. Many people questioned how a young, inexperienced woman was sent into such a dangerous situation. The answer was obvious. At the time, there were almost no laws protecting police informants. That needed to change.
The crime was so shocking, a law was created in Rachel Hoffman's name.
In 2009, Florida lawmakers passed Rachel's Law. The law requires police to explain that cooperation does not guarantee reduced charges. It also sets strict limits on how informants can be used. And before anyone agrees to help the police, they must speak with a lawyer. The law can't undo what happened to Rachel, but it helped thousands of informants understand the risks before saying yes. This next law was created because of ordinary people taking Tylenol. The Tylenol bill. In September...
Hey, there's no way that I'm gonna sit here and tell you what those men were thinking at that time years ago. But honestly, chat, that little stepping stool that you gotta go through first, talk to a lawyer before you become a confidential informant, that's not for lawyers' advice. That's just AKA you gotta tell somebody. Cause man, you know how easy it was back then for those police officers to be thinking, this girl didn't tell her pop she's doing this. This girl didn't call her mom. This girl didn't tell her girlfriend she's gonna be a CI. Nobody knows she's out here. That's a little bit more tempting to say, hey, let her go. Let's see where this goes. Now, if people knew, and that she's on our watch, oh, we're pulling the car over right then and there. Forget the drug bust. It's over. We can't contact her. We can't tell her not to go. She getting in that car. Pull the car over. It's over. We got caught. We're gonna get nothing today, but we're not letting this go any further because people know that we sent her out there. That's the point of telling a lawyer. You're not just telling someone. You're telling someone who's supposed to protect the law. They're not there to give you advice. It's so that they can hold these people accountable. Okay, who you working for? Who's gonna be out there on a sting operation? Yeah, that was reckless. That was reckless. Oh, yo, we know you want work, but we're gonna take you to it. 2 grown men and a little 25-year-old woman. Bro, what is wrong with y'all?
1982, Chicago went into panic mode. 7 people passed away after taking ordinary pain medication.
Tylenol.
Bad luck or a mistake. Someone did it on purpose.
I remember
By the
this.
time the truth
I remember
came out,
hearing
officials
about it.
realized a new law was the only way to stop this from happening again. In the early 1980s, Tylenol was the most popular pain reliever in America, but it had a dangerous flaw no one noticed. At the time, Tylenol bottles had no safety seals. There was no foil and no plastic wrap around the bottle. That meant anyone could open a bottle, swap out the pills, and close it again, and no one would ever know. For years, that risk went unnoticed, until one day in September 1982. That morning, a girl named Mary woke up with a sore throat.
12-year-old Mary Kellerman was a student at
Pardon
Jane
me.
Addams Junior High in Schaumburg, and according to school officials, she had a cold.
Y'all want to see her? Sounds
Now,
beautiful,
to feel
right?
better, her parents gave her a Tylenol cap.
That's Mary.
12-year-old Mary Kellerman was a student at Jane Addams Junior High in Schaumburg, and according to school officials,
Marshall.
she had a cold.
To help her feel better, her parents gave her a Tylenol capsule. A few hours later, Mary collapsed. She didn't survive. At first, no one knew why she passed away. It felt so random, but it was not an isolated
crazy.
case. Later that day in Chicago, Adam Janus developed a headache. He took Tylenol. Moments later, he passed away too. Then things became even worse. When Adam's family heard the news, they gathered at his home to grieve. His brother Stanley was there, along with Stanley's wife, Teresa. While they were mourning, both of them started to feel sick. Since they were at Adam's house, they found his bottle of Tylenol.
His brother and sister-in-law were so upset by his death that they went back to the house and took some Tylenol from the same bottle.
A few hours later, Stanley and Teresa were rushed to the hospital. They both passed away, too. Over the next few days, 3 more people across Chicago took Tylenol. They all passed away almost immediately. In total, 7 people passed away within a 3-day period.
Hey, we need some more information on that, because that has potential to be a little series, Netflix series or a movie. What just happened there? And maybe that's all we know. Maybe you told us all you found when you did your research. But what? So someone passes away. We go through the whole process of mourning him, taking him to the funeral, have the viewing, bury him. He's our brother. We come to his house for whatever reason, Lord knows. And while we're here, we both feel the need to say, I'm not feeling well. Let's take Tylenol together. I mean, that's sounds like there's more to it.
Mysterious circumstances. Police launched an investigation. They quickly noticed one thing all the cases had in common. Every victim took
They were
Tylenol
white?
right
No,
before
I know.
they passed.
Tylenol.
Local news picked up the story.
3 people are dead, and another is in critical condition tonight.
One of the victims took the pills he bought to his home.
Panic spread fast. Hospitals were flooded with calls.
The phone has been ringing off the hook at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center in Chicago. It's the regional poison control center for the entire Chicago area.
Anyone who took Tylenol feared they might be next. Luckily, investigators were able to recover the victims' bottles. They tested the capsules. The results were clear. Every capsule in those bottles contained potassium cyanide. It's a poison. Consuming a small amount can be fatal, but those pills contained
That's what
nearly
was in the
3 times
pills?
the amount needed.
I heard this story, but I didn't know about it.
Warned the public.
Police cruised up and down residential
They
streets,
got
warning all the
cyanide
citizens about the Tylenol danger.
in a
Police
pill
struggled
bottle.
to find a pattern. The contaminated pills came
That's
from
psycho
different
behavior.
factories and were sold in different pharmacies around the Chicago area. After investigating, the police reached a conclusion. Someone likely opened random Tylenol bottles in local stores. When no one was looking, they removed the real capsules and replaced them with the poisoned ones, then put the bottles back on the shelves. And it was easy because the bottles didn't have safety seals.
We don't know the extent of the contamination, so I think at this time it would be wise not to take extra strength Tylenol at all.
Police alerted Johnson & Johnson, the company behind Tylenol. The company pulled every bottle from shelves nationwide. In total, 31 million bottles were recalled, but the real problem remained. In general,
No, go back though, because you're missing the big picture.
in total, 31.
That's what we want to see. The company. Okay, the decision cost the company more than $100 million, an enormous amount in 1982. That's what we wanted to know. I mean, this is sad, but this is a long time ago, so we have questions now that we're just curious. My question was gonna be, how much? Because only a smart company would do that. Like, bro, we gotta throw everything out. Only an idiot would come in and say, no, we gotta figure out which ones are good. Maybe we throw out the ones in Chicago. Nothing else has been reported. We can't lose that much money. But obviously, they were smart enough to say, we're not gambling with this. This is people's lives. Maybe lawsuits they were worried about. Maybe the backlash of people saying, let's boycott their business. Nobody buy them no more. The fact that they don't want to do it just because a couple $1 million. $100 million. And now look at them. They're still winning and doing better than ever. I'm sure they could pay that debt 10 times over. So they did the right thing. But yeah, I remember hearing about this. I never knew it was cyanide. You know the type of coward psycho you gotta be to not only go out your way and you know, cook a plan up like this to unalive people, but to do it to random people. Not someone that's been wronging you, not someone that you look at as a opposition, not someone you even just know and hate. Just random. You're not even gonna be there when it happens. You're never gonna know who took it. Well, I mean, you can, because you'll see it in the paper. Another person has passed, but that's if they get to the bottom of this. Like, hey, this person must have passed because they took Tylenol. And until the cops did the investigation, you could be reading the paper and read 10 names, and only one of them died from Tylenol, and you wouldn't even know. Anyways, idiots. They always been around.
But the real problem remained. In general, medicine bottles were still easy to open, and whoever was responsible could strike again. So manufacturers made a major change. They redesigned the Tylenol bottles with 3 layers of protection. First, a foil seal over the opening. Second, a tightly sealed cap. Third, a plastic wrap around the bottle's neck. If any seal was broken, consumers would know immediately. This became known as tamper-proof packaging. Other companies followed suit. Soon, every medicine bottle in America had
every medicine bottle.
But packaging wasn't the only issue. At the time, product tampering was only a state crime. There was no strong federal punishment. That needed to change. In 1983, Congress passed what became known as the Tylenol Bill. The law made product tampering a federal crime. Anyone caught could face anywhere from 10 years in prison to life behind bars. The government hoped this would discourage people from repeating that crime, but it didn't. 3 years later, in 1986, a woman named Stella Nickell wanted to end her husband, so she added deadly pills to his medicine bottle. Her husband passed away, but the police later discovered what she did. Stella Nickell became the first person ever convicted under the new law. She was sentenced to 90 years in prison for product tampering. So every time you see a safety seal on medicine, remember this law. It protects millions of people from getting hurt. This next story is about a tragedy that went down in history. The Station nightclub fire. Today, every nightclub in America had...
Hey, the real question is, did she have her own cyanide process, or did she save some of those pills? You know, did she buy them on the black market? Hey, let me get some of those Tylenol pills that they're asking to recall. The ones with the cyanide. And just hold them.
But in the early 2000s, many clubs didn't. Back then, sprinklers were not even required by law. One night, more than 400 people walked into a nightclub without sprinklers. What followed was so tragic, it changed fire safety laws forever. In 2003, the Station nightclub in Rhode Island was very popular. It was owned by 2 brothers. Like many club owners, they wanted to keep noise from leaking outside, so they installed foam padding on the walls to absorb sound. That solved the noise problem, but it also created a much bigger bigger one. The foam lining the walls was highly flammable.
But it was also made of polyurethane, a highly flammable petroleum-based material.
Highly
It was installed
flammable.
all around the stage and the dance floor.
But the club owners didn't see it as a serious risk. Over time, the club grew even more popular, and in 2003, a rock band called Great White booked a show there, but one critical detail was overlooked. Great White was known for putting on a pyrotechnic display during their performances. Pyrotechnics are small fireworks usually used to excite crowds, but fireworks
That
meant
checks out.
sparks. Using pyrotechnics inside a foam-lined nightclub was extremely dangerous. On the night of the show, the band's tour manager set up the fireworks. They were placed directly behind the stage. By 11 p.m., the band was performing. About 462 people were inside the club. That alone was a serious problem because the legal capacity was only 404. As the band played, the tour manager lit the fireworks. Sparks shot into the air. The crowd cheered. They had no idea what had just started. The sparks instantly ignited the foam on the wall behind the stage. Flames spread within seconds. At first, some people thought it was part of the show.
Right.
When smoke began filling the room. That's when panic set in. Everyone rushed toward the front door. The building actually had 4 exits, but most people didn't know that. They got into the club through the front door, so they all tried to leave the same way. Many never made it out, but...
Has Kyrie texted you back?
I don't want to talk about it.
How was the math test?
Don't.
By the time firefighters arrived, it was too late. Hundreds were injured. More than 100 lost their lives. The authorities launched an investigation. They identified one major issue. The nightclub had no sprinkler system. Sprinklers would have put out the fire, or at least contained it long enough to give everyone
Contained
time to
it.
exit safely.
Give some time.
Authorities made sure it could never happen again. In the months that followed, new fire safety laws were created. First, nightclubs were required to install sprinklers. Flammable materials had to be removed from walls and ceilings. Emergency exits had to be clearly marked and well lit. Limits were placed on how many people could be inside at one time. Fireworks were banned in indoor venues unless strict safety rules were followed. Every one of these rules came from that tragedy. That night, 462 people went out to enjoy live music, but more than 100 never came home. Up next is the story of a woman who made a fatal mistake. Rowan's Law. Rowan's Law requires young people to get medical attention when they're not feeling well. At first, that sounds strange. Why would anyone need a law for that? The reason traces back to the disturbing case of 17-year-old Rowan Stringer. In 2013, Rowan Stringer was a high school student in Ontario, Canada. She was also the captain of her school's rugby team. Rowan's friends and family knew how much she loved the sport.
She really enjoyed it. She really, she was always coming home and talking about how many tackles she had.
Rowan gave everything on the field, and that intensity would later become part of the danger. Rugby is a physical sport. Players constantly collide into each other and hit the ground. Those impacts can cause serious injuries. One of the most dangerous is a concussion, which is a brain injury. Many players didn't understand how serious concussions were. In the spring of 2013, Rowan's team played several games within a week. During the first match, Rowan took 2 hard hits to the head. She felt dizzy afterward, but she didn't tell her coaches. She stayed in the game. Later that night, Rowan was still feeling off. She told her friends she thought she might have a concussion, but she never saw a doctor. Instead, she focused on getting ready for the next game. It was a decision she would not recover from. At the next match, things became much worse. Rowan was tackled repeatedly. Each time, she hit the ground hard. After one fall, she tried to stand. She couldn't. Coaches called for help. The game stopped immediately. Rowan was rushed to the hospital, but doctors realized this wasn't a typical concussion. They diagnosed Rowan with second impact syndrome. This happens when a second concussion occurs before the first one is healed, and that could be fatal. Doctors tried everything to save her. They couldn't. Rowan's family was devastated. But the tragedy revealed a much larger problem. Most young athletes didn't understand the risks and symptoms of concussions, and because of that, many injuries went unreported. Rowan's family refused to let her passing be meaningless.
I would never want to see this happen to another family ever again, so our goal is to really make sure that we prevent that.
They shared Rowan's story with lawmakers in Ontario, and in 2018, the authorities passed Rowan's Law.
So Ontario will become the first jurisdiction in all of Canada to pass concussion legislation.
The law made concussion education mandatory. Coaches, athletes, and parents had to learn the risks. It also set strict rules. If a concussion is suspected, the athlete must leave the game. No exceptions. They can only return after a doctor clears them. Because of this law, winning is no longer the top priority. Health is. The laws we've talked about so far happened because of tragedy, but this next one was created because someone made a dumb mistake. the exploding whale.
I mean, one could argue there was a couple dumb mistakes in this. Chat, I ain't even gonna lie to you. I never knew you could get a double concussion. She was a beast. Rest in peace to Roman. She was a savage on the field. You take 2 concussions and you're still trying to get out there? God bless her.
In 1970, Oregon passed a very specific law. Do not use explosives to blow up dead whales. Why in the world would this be a law? Because it already happened once. Someone blew up a whale, and the result was a disaster. Oregon has a long coastline. Miles of beaches stretch along the Pacific Ocean. But beaches come with one constant problem. Marine animals sometimes wash up lifeless on shore. Usually, they're small and easy to deal with. They can be tossed back into the sea. But sometimes something massive washes ashore. And when that happens, getting rid of it becomes a serious problem. That's what Oregon faced on November 9th, 1970. That morning, a massive dead whale washed up on the beach. It was about 45 feet long and weighed nearly 8 tons. It was far too large to move, so it stayed where it landed for days. As the whale decayed, the smell became overwhelming. People could smell it miles away.
It had to be said, the Oregon State Highway Division not only had a whale of a problem on its hands, it had a stinking whale of a problem.
Local officials knew the whale had to go, but every option seemed impossible. Burying it would be too difficult. They would have to dig a massive hole on the beach. Towing it back out to sea wasn't realistic either, so Oregon authorities held a meeting to decide what to do. An engineer named George Thornton had an idea. It sounded like a good plan, but in reality, it was a terrible idea. George's plan was simple. Use dynamite to blow the whale into small pieces. Then birds would eat what was left and clean up the beach. George was an engineer and had experience using explosives.
What if they don't? What if they don't eat it all? It's been dead for 3 days.
That assumption didn't hold up. On the day of the blast, hundreds of spectators gathered on the beach. Everyone stood what they believed was a safe distance away. A reporter showed up as well. George and his team brought half a ton of dynamite. That's roughly
half a ton of dynamite.
They packed it around the whale's body. Then they pushed everyone back even further. The countdown began. Then the explosion.
Well, we know one thing about Thornton. He doesn't have step.
Put your finger down if you don't like when home shopping sites sell your personal info. Put a finger down if you...
Let's put a pin in it.
The explosion launched massive chunks of whale into the air. Then it rained down across the beach. Debris landed as far as a quarter-mile away.
Everywhere.
One huge piece crashed into a parked car and crushed the roof. When the smoke cleared, officials realized they now had a bigger mess. Massive pieces of whale were spread across the beach. They were too heavy for birds to carry. And somehow the smell was even worse than before. It took dozens of workers hours to collect whale pieces scattered across the beach. And officials did what they should have done from the start. They buried the remains in the sand. The incident made national news. In Oregon, it became a punchline, but the embarrassment forced the state to confront a real issue. There were no clear rules for disposing of large marine animals. That ended after the whale. Oregon changed its policies. Explosives were officially off the table. When a large marine animal washes ashore, workers dig a deep pit, roll it in, and bury it. The state remembered that lesson. In the next 10 years, 41 whales washed up on Oregon beaches. This time, no one reached for dynamite. History did not repeat itself. This next law was created because of absolutely horrible internet trolls. Zach's Law. Zach's Law exists because someone posted an image on Twitter. It doesn't sound dangerous, but there was something about that image that could have caused millions of medical emergencies.
Hey, if they ever make a scene, movie, show, parody, you gotta make sure that it's Thornton's car that gets the whale thrown on the windshield.
Understand why we need to start with the boy the law was named after, Zach Eagling. Zach was an 8-year-old boy living in the United Kingdom, but his life was very different from most kids his age. He was born with 2 medical conditions, cerebral palsy and epilepsy. This made everyday tasks difficult. Even simple movements took effort, but Zach didn't let that define him. He wanted to help others facing the same challenges, so he decided to raise money for the Epilepsy Society, a charity that supports people with that condition. Zach planned a sponsored walk. He would walk 2.6 kilometers in laps around his backyard, and he was going to do it without his walking aid. Zach hoped it would inspire people to donate. It did. Unfortunately, it also inspired evil people to act. The sponsored walk was scheduled for May 2020. Zach's mother filmed him as he slowly moved around the backyard. It was his longest distance he had ever walked on his own, and he succeeded.
Right up to the wall.
Zach's fundraising feat raised over £21,000.
The video of Zach's walk was shared on the Epilepsy Society's social media. It got a ton of views, messages of support poured in. Then the internet showed its darker side. Internet trolls posted flashing images and GIFs on the Epilepsy Society's Twitter account. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Of course they did.
Flashing images can trigger seizures in people with epilepsy. They tagged the posts with keywords that would be picked up by anyone who lived with the condition. Fortunately, Zach didn't have a medical emergency that day, but others weren't as lucky. Many reported seizures after seeing the posts. The Epilepsy Society reported the attack to the police, but officers said there was little they could do. There was no clear law against intentionally triggering medical emergencies online. That's when Zach's mother realized something had to change. Zach's family and the Epilepsy Society launched a campaign to protect people with the condition from online harm. They took their case to lawmakers in the UK, and in 2023, Zach's law was passed in the UK.
Zach's law means that trolling anybody deliberately with the intention of causing them seizures is now a criminal offence.
The law also places responsibility on social media platforms. They must remove dangerous flashing content before anyone gets hurt. If they don't, they can face heavy fines. Zach's walk was meant to raise money for charity. Instead, it changed the law. Now, people with epilepsy have stronger protection online.
You make me proud every single day. You drive me crazy. Yeah, but I think we are the best team ever.
This next chapter is the reason
W
why we
Mama
have
Duke.
Amber Alerts. The Amber Alert system. The Amber
Yeah,
Alert
teach
system
us about
exists
this. Why
because
do
of
we
an
have
incident
this?
that happened in
I mean, it
Austin,
helps.
Texas, and
I'm
it
with it.
involved a little girl named Amber Hagerman. One Saturday in January 1996, Amber was riding her bike near her home. A neighbor saw her riding in circles across the parking lot. Moments later, everything went wrong. The black pickup truck pulled up beside her. A man jumped out and grabbed Amber. Then he sped away. The entire incident lasted only seconds. The neighbor called the police immediately. He gave a description of the suspect in his vehicle, but couldn't recall much else.
And he run up behind her and grabbed her right under her arms and picked her up, and he turned around and
Like
come
he
right
knew
back
her.
to here where his truck was when the door was open and put her in the truck.
Police launched a manhunt right away.
And
The
what did
truck
you
was
do?
already
No,
gone.
no.
The next day, the
God
entire
bless you.
community
I know.
joined the
At
search.
least you
Search
spoke
teams
up.
combed through Arlington. Flyers were posted everywhere, but there was no sign of her. 4 days later, a man made a terrible discovery.
Apparently he was walking our dog and
Ah.
he looked over the fence and had saw something white. Looked again and noticed that it was a body.
We have over 600 vendors worldwide. There's a lot on our plate.
So then what are you telling us about it for? You got 600, keep selling.
The community was devastated. As the shock settled, people began asking a painful question. What more could have been done to save her?
That's a
That
good question.
led to a
Marshall?
powerful idea. On the day Amber was taken, most people nearby had no idea it happened. Life continued as normal. If people knew what to look for, someone might have spotted the truck. Someone might have called it in. Local TV and radio stations already had systems to warn people about severe weather. So why couldn't they use the same system to warn people about kidnapped children? The Texas woman shared this idea with law enforcement and local broadcasters. They quickly realized she was right.
She was
Police and
right.
Broadcasters
She is right.
collaborated to develop a public alert system for missing children. They called it the Amber Plan.
Today we're unveiling the Amber Plan.
AMBER stands for America's Missing Broadcast
Oh.
Emergency Response.
Nice.
It was also named in honor of Amber Hagerman. When an alert is activated, it interrupts television and radio broadcasts. It appears on highway signs. It even pops up on phones. The goal is to get the public involved as fast as possible. After launching in Texas, the system expanded nation.
You can't and maybe I'm stating the obvious, and I'll do that from time to time. I'll wear that. But you can't convince me, if I'm not stating the obvious, you can't convince me that this has not been beneficial to bringing down the number in kidnappings and attempted kidnappings. Knowing that if you do this, and even the slightest person, because most of the time when you're going to see children, you know, if we go way back then, yeah, you'd see a woman, a little girl, and even then, there was people around. He's literally on the camera telling us how it happened, and somehow, some way, he's seen the whole thing from wherever he was. And old buddy probably didn't even notice him, or maybe he did notice him and still did what he did. But the point is, back then, you'd see a kid in the middle of nowhere, bro, like on a dirt bike, on a bike, you know, in the middle of nowhere. But nowadays, bro, if you see a kid there's either more kids around or some type of, you know, grown folk around. So what I'm saying is, knowing if you do this in about 5 minutes tops, there's going to be police out here. In about 10 minutes to 15, 20 minutes tops, they're going to have the make of your vehicle, some type of description of how you look, whether you're a man or a female. Unless you're hoodied up, they're going to know, hey, the make of your vehicle is enough. I think it has helped. Shout out to the lady that was working overtime. Meanwhile, you got cops on payroll and they're not even coming up with this stuff. Lady comes out of nowhere and says, yo, let's do something about this. Shout out to her.
Since 1996, the Amber Alert system has helped recover more than 1,200 children. Sadly, the man who took Amber Hagerman has never been caught. This next chapter is about a building that people entered but couldn't escape. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. In 1911, many workplaces were dangerous, but few were as deadly as the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in New York. The factory occupied the top 3 floors of a 10-story building. Inside, workers made shirtwaists.
Shirtwaists were a type of blouse popular with women office workers in the late 19th century and early 20th centuries.
Demand for shirtwaists was high, so factories pushed workers hard to keep up. The work was exhausting, but workers had little power to speak up. They worked 9 hours a day on weekdays and 7 hours on Saturdays. But the long hours weren't the worst part. Safety was. Factory owners wanted to stop workers from taking breaks outside. They also wanted to prevent theft and discourage union activity. So during work hours, they locked almost all the factory doors.
It was a large loft in which the doors had been locked from the outside.
Those locked doors created a serious risk. If something went wrong, workers couldn't escape. And on March 25th, 1911, the disaster finally happened. Around 4:40 p.m. that day, one of the factory workers smoked a cigarette. Then they tossed it into a bin. This was a factory that made clothes, so the bin was fabric.
You can't make this up.
Caught fire in seconds.
We work around clothes.
But most of the doors were locked.
Onlookers out for a weekend stroll in nearby Washington Square Park watched in horror.
A few workers managed to escape, but for most, help arrived too late. By the end, more than 100 workers didn't make it. The city was left grieving.
This fire really shook people up. You know, the city was so guilt-stricken.
Tragic.
Maybe we were so
unnecessary tragic.
The families blamed 2 people.
Factory owner Max Blank.
Yeah, he's an idiot
his
too.
Partner Isaac Harris was accused of locking the factory door.
Both men were taken to court, but a jury acquitted them. The public was outraged. Labor groups protested in the streets. Thousands joined funeral marches. People demanded better safety for workers. And
oh yeah, chat, make no mistake. Movie or documentary has to be out there about these 2 guys. I mean, that kind of writes itself. It'd be interesting to see it done, though. I'd watch a Netflix series about these 2 idiots, but somehow, some way, anybody who does research will find out they had money, chat. Never mind owning a business and hundreds of people employed. Yeah, they had money, and connections. Just look at them. You know what I mean? They look like the typical prick you're going to see in a movie, you know, that plays the role of the guy that has all the right connections. But, I mean, ain't nothing wrong with having connections. It really ain't. Ain't nothing wrong with knowing a judge and, you know, you've done well for yourself. But there is something wrong with getting off. Nothing, not a slap on the wrist, not a couple fines, not a couple payouts, nothing. Bro, these 2 grown men were locking doors to their establishment. See, and that's how you know we've gotten bolder as a people, and we always been dumb. There's 2 things you know when you hear stories like this. We've always had idiots around us. Some idiots got more money than you. Some idiots are broke. Some idiots are black. Some idiots are Rican and black and white. Some idiots are, you know, born into money. Some idiots work for their money. We've always had idiots. Because you got to be an idiot for him locking a door, which is crazy. An idiot for the guy that smoked inside. But the idiot smoking inside and throwing his cigarette would have probably never smoked inside if the door wasn't locked. But throwing a lit cigarette, even if he thought it was out, throwing a cigarette when you work around clothes, I don't care if it was in a bin. I don't care if the bin was, you thought the bin was empty. throwing a cigarette you just smoked, a freshly lit cigarette that you just smoked, even if you thought it was out, around clothes, I mean, even an idiot should know better than that. Obviously not. So we know two things. We've always had idiots, chat, and we've gotten way bolder in the years. Because ain't no way you're letting your boss do this. At your job right now, you're paid well. I don't care if you're paid well. I don't care if you got a good position. I don't care if you've been there for 10 years. If your boss said tomorrow, yo, I'm locking the doors when I leave. I'm trying to stop thieves. And technically, I'm calling y'all some thieves, potential thieves. I'm trying to stop y'all from potentially stealing while I'm not here. And I'm trying to make sure y'all actually doing y'all job. You'd be like, go ahead, lock the door, see what happens.
Pushing until they got it. Between 1913 and 1914, New York passed nearly 60 new safety laws.
60 new laws.
Buildings were required to have clear exits. Fire escapes had to be strong and usable. Doors could no longer be locked during work hours. Factories had to be inspected regularly, and fire drills became mandatory. More than a century later, those laws are still being enforced.
Yeah, absolutely.
They shape modern workplace safety standards today. Worker safety is now treated as essential, but it took a tragedy to make that happen.
And it always
does.
Safety
Warning, every seal on a bottle, every alert on your phone. They exist because someone paid the ultimate price.
Yep.
So the next time you think a rule is pointless,
checks out.
remember, it probably isn't. Visual venture.
Bro,
So we talked about laws created.
it's not that we think rules are pointless. It's that we know when a rule is pointless. If someone tells you, yo, shave your beard, we know that's pointless. If someone tells you you can't wear bracelets at your job, we know that there's a reason why they don't want that. It could get caught on something. It could fall. We understand the difference when a rule is not pointless and when a rule is pointless. So what you're talking about is different. When you hear someone complain and say, there's a rule at my job, they still follow it. I follow it, but it's pointless. Like a job says you can't wear headphones. It's not pointless. We know when a rule is pointless. We understand that we'd rather do it. We'd like to at least have one in, if not put some music on in here. So we know the difference from a rule that is pointless and then a rule that makes sense. But we just don't like it. Pardon me. Those are two different things. There's a lot of pointless rules out there. But it's always like that. It's like that when raising kids. That's why the firstborn is always the one with more scars on his body. He done got cut up. He done got hurt. You know, he's the one, he's the wing it baby. Like, oh, we were winging it. We didn't know what we were doing. We let him stay out at 3 o'clock in the morning. We let him go to all friends' houses. He'd come back. He'd got in a fight. He came back. He had nightmares. We let him stay up at night. We wing it. You wing it on the first baby. The second and definitely the middle child. The middle child has rules on top of rules. They have to bend and break and get away because the middle child is exactly like this. Too much bad has happened and we learn from our mistakes. And when things happen with the first child and the second child, the middle child gets it the worst. Because it's like, no, we don't do that. No, you're not allowed to do that. You can't go there. We can't do this. You can't do that. Because we done made our mistakes and learned the hard way. Because, you know, the firstborn coming home with stitches on his whole arm. The firstborn coming home and now he's picking up smoking. Where you start smoking at? You never smoked. We don't smoke. Where'd you get a cigarette? Oh, hanging out with these guys. Oh, okay, now we don't do that with the second child. We definitely don't do that with the third child. Like, you know what I mean? That's why the middle child always complains. That's why there's a such thing as middle child. No one ever heard, you never hear of anybody say, oh yeah, he got that firstborn like syndrome. It's always middle child. Middle child is a thing. They get a certain way handed to them that they didn't necessarily ask for, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, chat, I mean, a lot of this could have been avoided had we paid, and that's the real concern that we should be addressing. The real problem here is these guys didn't want to pay. They didn't want to pay to say, hey, we should start a company or a union that goes from job to job and does inspection and make sure that everything is safe for the workers. They barely wanted to pay the workers what they deserve. You think they were going to pay all these extra add-ons hey, we should make sure that there's exit signs. So in case, God forbid, if there's ever a tragedy or a fire and people need to get out, they know exactly where they go, whether they speak English, Spanish, or Russian, whether they're fast or slow, they know which way to go. Like, you think they wanted to come up out of pocket and instead of buying a new Porsche or whatever it was at the time, you think they wanted to pay for things that were going to benefit the people that were benefiting them? No, that's the last thing they wanted to do. So it took for things like this, for people to be the sacrificial lamb, really, for them to go through it so that we wouldn't. Checks out, chat. Checks out. It always does. It always does. That's why you got to respect. When you meet a person, and that's really what we need. More documentaries. We got a handful of documentaries about the crappy CEOs. We need some documentaries about the solid CEOs, like the ones that should get our respect. Because the more I know, there's a company that I found out recently that now I'm going to double down. Oh, I don't drink Arizona iced teas, but I can tell you and I can guarantee you right now, I'm going to start. Next time I'm at a gas station, you know how many times I'm at the gas station or Sunoco or making a quick 3 a.m. drop, and I don't know what I want to drink. I'm thinking, I don't need no Mountain Dew in my system. I don't want no soda. I don't need no energy. I got water in the car. I'm thinking, what can I drink? I just want something, not juice. Like, constantly. I don't want Gatorade. Constantly. Now I'm buying Arizonas. I don't know everything I read, but I found out the guy at the Arizona, he refuses to raise the prices from, $1 for Arizona, 99 cents, because as anybody should feel this way, that's within a reasonable stance. His stance is, we make enough money, we do fine. I don't owe money. I'm not pressed, like, and it's not about being pressed, because there's nothing wrong with being successful, and there's nothing wrong with increasing and getting better with your business and figuring out how to do more and get more and be bigger. But the way he just said it, because I don't think I read it, I think I heard him speaking, and he said, I don't owe. It's not like we're in debt. It's not like I have money. We're doing well. I have money. I can open another factory. We can continue working. The workers are paid, and it just doesn't make sense for me to charge you $4 or $5 for a drink when we're doing well. We're winning. Like we've done it. We did the hard part, and now we've worked our way into a process, thank God, into a system where we're making money. And there's no reason to get greedy, and there's definitely no reason to overcharge just so I can get mine or just so I can get over. And I just thought that was just relatable, because I hope to keep that mindset. And I just thought that was righteous. Like that's living righteous. And I definitely hope to live like that and adapt that mentality always and forever. But if I know nothing else, I'm supporting Arizonas. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Get out.